Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell is insane, but his team is the team to beat in the NFC. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. Make sure to listen to every episode of Locked On NFL on Amazon Music. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today, as I am every Friday, by Locked On NFL expert, the mastermind, Ross Jackson. On today's episode, I'm going to tell you why Kirk Cousins will not be getting his revenge over the Minnesota Vikings, why the Kansas City Chiefs are primed to lose to the Los Angeles Chargers. But we will start with that excellent Thursday night football game between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Before we dive in, thank you for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get a big return on FanDuel because new customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And of course, it's a FanDuel Friday, so we're going to give you some of our best bets of the weekend. But Ross, the Detroit Lions, despite the injuries, prove once again that they're the team to beat in the NFC.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers are proving that they just ain't ready quite yet.
Not quite yet, but my guy Matt Derry from Locked On Lions is ready, and he broke down this big win.
Somehow, some way, this Detroit Lions team just keeps winning. 12-1, 11 straight wins, a franchise record. The Lions have clinched a playoff spot. They win on Thursday Night Football at Ford Field, 34-31. Matt Derry with you, Locked On Lions. What an incredible performance tonight from this Lions defense. Yes, they gave up 31 points, but they got stops when they needed to, and they hung in there with all the injuries. And then at the end, the bottom line is that the Packers could not stop this Lions offense. They get aggressive at the end on a 4th and 1, get a David Montgomery first down, and then Jake Bates kicks the game-winning field goal as time expires from 31 yards out. And yes, the Lions win again at home, 34-31 over the Packers in what was a classic Thursday night game at Ford Field. More coming up on Locked On Lions.
Ross, as a madman myself, I recognize one when I see it, and Dan Campbell is a madman. I mean, they were 4 for 5 on 4th down on the day. I thought the second to last one where they went for it on like their own 30-yard line was just absolutely insanity, no matter who you are or whatever. But like going for it there at the end so that they could run out all the time rather than taking the field goal on 4th and 1. Like the Lions just have the juice, man. They just have it, and it doesn't matter who plays. It doesn't matter how many injuries they are. And at the end of the day, I do cover the Tennessee Titans, and it very much reminds me of the 2021 Titans, where the Titans used 91 players on their roster and still found a way to go 12-5. Now, the Titans were complete frauds. I admit that. And the Lions are not by any stretch of the imagination. But just the point is, when your team has it and there's just a vibe in the building that no matter how many people go down, no matter how many injuries we experience, no matter how many men become the next man up, we are going to find a way to win because there is just full-on belief. The Detroit Lions are what 100% buy-in looks like with a football team. So credit to Dan Campbell, man, with all the injuries they got going on, and credit to their coordinators as well, of course, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Like, just a tremendous win by the Lions when they're, undermanned at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, they have the stars at the top that are healthy to be able to get it done. You look at that final drive, you saw Amon-Ra St. Brown come on over the course of that last fourth quarter, even though he was mostly quiet throughout that game. And then meanwhile, Tim Patrick, who hadn't scored a touchdown since like 2021, put 2 of them things down. So that was great for him. And then we also saw a guy like David Montgomery, who's, catching passes coming off of the chip release. He's running the football. He's getting the big block at the last on that big play on the dig by Amon-Ra St. Brown to get them in position to eventually go for it on that 4th and inches. I mean, you saw the big names arrive, and talk about big names, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, those guys on national television, making sure that they've cemented themselves their head coaching look over the course of this offseason.
Yeah, both of them should get jobs in this hiring cycle. But flipping it to the other side, a big narrative that I've been pushing, as a media member, weaving my narratives. The Green Bay Packers just aren't quite ready yet to win these big games and these big moments. And, as a team that is the youngest roster in the NFL, they always get praised for that. But then the flip side of that is you see them make young mistakes. Quay Walker gets a big penalty early in the game, and then Christian Watson with a clear offensive pass interference at the end of the game to kind of ruin the Packers' chance to get a touchdown. But I'll tell you, my guy Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers, he doesn't see it that way.
The Green Bay Packers lost to the Detroit Lions 34-31, and they got robbed. It is not interesting to talk about officiating. It is lame to complain about referees. I wish I didn't have to do it. And yet here we are because I have to, because the officiating was so one-sided in this football game that it cost the Green Bay Packers the chance to win the NFC North. It is going to single-handedly cost the Packers a chance to win the NFC North because that dream is over. They played well enough to win this football game. They had to play the Detroit Lions, the best team in the league so far this year, and the guys on the officiating crew. This was an abomination of officiating. Call after call after call went the Detroit Lions' way. This was stolen from the Green Bay Packers, and it's going to cost them playoff seeding. It's going to have real ramifications in the NFC, and it's garbage.
Ross, I got to tell you, I love my guy Pete. I really do. But I think that's completely off base. I mean, anytime that there's a big, huge, controversial call with the officials, that is the talking point. And that's not the case with this game. People are not debating the officiating in this game after. It's not like a game you remember very well as someone who covers the Saints, like with the defensive pass interference call on Nickel Roby-Coleman, like this isn't that. There was a holding call in the third quarter that maybe could have been called where a Packers defender got tugged back on a blitz. But, I mean, I thought the Christian Watson offensive pass interference was clear as day. He threw his shoulder into a defender and knocked him down. Like, I don't really see the officials as a main talking point here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you too. I think there was a run block as well by Amon-Ra St. Brown where he went high on a defender. But again, if those calls are the reason why your team lost the game, then it's the reason why that's not the reason that you lost the game, right? You were already in trouble in that case. So I have to say I do agree with Peter in one place in that it is indeed lame to complain about officiating. I completely agree with him on that. No, I'm just giving Peter a hard time. But yeah, no, I don't see the officiating there. I thought that there was a lot of things here that Green Bay did well that they could hang their hats on and say, yeah, you went toe to toe with the best team in the NFL here. And that's what I think of the Detroit Lions. I thought that Matt LaFleur held Jordan Love back a little bit too much in that first half. Only 7 passing attempts. We were really afraid of that Detroit Lions defense and pass rush, even though it was injured. I thought there were some things they could have done to maybe cut it loose a little bit earlier and play to their brand a little bit better, but they didn't do that. I think those were their main core issues, not necessarily the officiating.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you got down 10-0. Don't get down 10-0. They go score a touchdown. Don't make a pass interference by the goal line. Like, get a stop at the end instead of allowing Detroit to get the field goal. Like, there are plenty of opportunities for the Packers to control this game in their own hands, not in the refs' hands. And as the youngest team in the NFL, I thought they made young team mistakes, and they didn't do that, even though, like you said, a lot to be excited about for the Packers, like Jordan Love, that throw he made near the end of the game, sliding away from the blitz up the middle and making the throw to Christian Watson. Just phenomenal stuff. But again, just not quite good enough for a young team that makes some young mistakes during the game. But with that being said, we got a lot of good matchups to talk about this weekend. I think the Chargers are primed to upset the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience. And the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. I just picked up a package of Omaha Steaks for my stepdad. One of my favorite gifts to get this time of year. And, you know, from legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, remember, you could save 50% off site-wide for a limited time with omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL, which I just took advantage of as well. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com, plus an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase does apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Skylight Frames. We're talking about Christmas presents, talking about gifts that you can give. There is no better gift than Skylight Frames. So here's how it works. It's a digital photo frame. You could set it up in less than 60 seconds, and you could share photos directly from the Skylight app, the free Skylight app that's on your phone, to the Skylight frame so that you can constantly update and constantly put new photos on the frame. Look, some people are just hard to buy for at the end of the day. The Skylight frame is awesome to use. It's going to have sentimental value, and you can upload thousands of photos right from your phone, and they're going to appear in seconds. I mean, really, really cool idea with Skylight Frames, and I like getting the Skylight Frames for my family members. Again, just a really, really cool gift this time of year. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, you can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's skylightframe.com/NFL and get $20 off your purchase. Once again, at skylightframe.com/NFL. All right, Ross, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about a really good Thursday night football game. And look, we're just going to be upfront and honest with you. This may not be the best slate of games that we see. Thursday night football game made it worth it because a great game. And we got another great game on Sunday night football between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, the Chargers have their own issues. Will Ladd McConkey play? But the Chiefs have not been playing good football for quite some time now. And looking at that game, the Chargers have some pretty obvious things that they need to take care of to win it. And our guys on Crossover Thursday, Locked On Chiefs, Locked On Chargers, broke that down.
Yeah, I think there's 3 big things for the Chargers, and a lot of it has to do with going up against the Chiefs specifically, and kind of the recipe in this case for the Chargers to pull off that upset, to find the way to get that big, big giant win that is still missing from Jim Harbaugh's first season. Like, everyone, you can't look at Jim Harbaugh and say, hey, it's been a bad year, you're 8-4. But what you're missing is that cherry on top, and beating the Chiefs would be that cherry on top for this team. And I think when you're looking at what the Chargers need to do to pull off that upset, it's this: be much better than they have in the second half. You're not going to be able to do what you did against the Falcons last week and beat the Chiefs. You're not going to not be able to score a touchdown offensively and beat the Chiefs this week. It's just not going to happen. You have to be a lot better in the second half. And the Chargers found out that the hard way in the first matchup between these two teams, right? Chargers led 10-0. They lost 17-10. They didn't score a single point in the second half, and they lost that game. The second thing is winning in the red zone. The Chargers went 0-2 in the red zone last week. They have scored touchdowns against the Chiefs. You have to win this game.
They do need to score touchdowns, and I think it makes it difficult when you don't have real playmakers on offense, and I think that's the obvious weakness for the Chargers. Look, I've been talking about a Chargers upset and teasing it. I don't know if I could quite go there with Pick'em, but I do want to say this, Ross. I love Chargers plus 3.5. The Chiefs have played nothing but close games. They just only won by 2 over the Raiders. No matter what happens in this game, whether the Chargers can pull it off or not, I love Chargers plus 3.5.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my stepdad not too long ago before the Chiefs had ever lost this game. And, we talk football and all that kind of stuff. And he was asking me, who do you think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to lose to? And I said, well, probably Buffalo, because they've lost most times during the regular season against Buffalo. It's in the playoffs
Right.
that they kind of own Buffalo. But the other team that I think will eventually deliver them a loss is going to be some division team, and it's probably going to be Harbaugh and the Chargers. And so
Yes.
I'm right here with you. Do I think that the Chargers are the better football team in terms of top talent and all those other things? No. But do I think that they're the team that's going to play Kansas City like no one else can, especially based on what we saw last week against the Raiders?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. I'll actually add one more key to Dan's evaluation there, and I think that getting Justin Herbert in play action is going to be a big benefit for them too. That was a huge benefit for them back in Week 4, and allowed Justin Herbert to play at his best. He struggled when they weren't running play action. He thrived when they did. I expect to see a lot more play action in this one, and a big focus, of course, because it's Harbaugh on the run game. So I might take the under in this game, Tyler, at 42.5.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And with how much Kansas City blitzes, if you can catch them in some blitzes off of play action and have some holes over the middle of the field, it doesn't really matter who your weapons are if they're wide open, and Justin Herbert can deliver the ball to him. So that would be a good option as well. So plus 3.5 for the Chargers, probably looking at the under as well on that one. Again, it's a tough slate of games to bet. There aren't a lot of great bets out there, but we're giving you the best ones that we see. Moving right along, the next one that I like is the Seahawks plus 2.5 going to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. So the last time these two teams played, very low scoring game. There was a pick six, and the Seahawks came out on top. Now, with the Cardinals being at home, they have an advantage here. That's why they're the favorites. But at the end of the day, I just trust the Seahawks more. I trust Geno Smith more than Kyler Murray. I trust Kenneth Walker. I trust DK Metcalf to make plays in these big situations. The Cardinals have kind of been like the sum is better than the individual parts type team. You can't really, they don't have a lot of stars on defense that, pop out to you. And in big games, I just lean to the star power. But I'll tell you, the one star that the Cardinals do have for sure is Kyler Murray. And my guy, Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals, thinks this might be one of the biggest games in Kyler Murray's career.
For me, and this is including the 2021 Ponzi scheme season with Cliff Kingsbury when they went 7-0 and 10-2. This is the most important game of Kyler Murray's career. The reason why I say that is, and I'll just go to Path to Victory first. The reason why I say that is things are lining up, maybe a year early, and also there's no excuses. There's no outside reasons. He's got all the offense he needs. He's got the best offensive line he's had probably in his life, and the defense is playing out of their shorts. This is a game that may be a pick'em game. This is a game that Kyler Murray needs to take. If Kyler Murray shrinks, for lack of a better phrase, if he plays very small in this game and the Cardinals lose in some sort of fashion that is even anywhere close to convincing, I promised my everydayers that I will have uncomfortable conversations about Kyler Murray at the end of the season.
Sounds like an excellent show. Uncomfortable conversations about Kyler Murray. You know what I mean? Leave it to Alex to deliver the one-liners. But look, at the end of the day, I've said it throughout the season. I think the Cardinals are 1 year away. They're one off season away from being a really, really good football team that I think can win that division next year. Now, San Francisco may bounce back, and we'll talk about San Francisco in just a moment. But I just don't trust the Cardinals quite yet to win these big games and big moments. And while the Seahawks haven't been some banner team that you can always rely on, they've been through big games. They've won big games. And I trust Geno Smith and crew. And honestly, I trust Mike McDonald more than I trust Jonathan Gannon right now. And I just think Seattle finds a way to pull it off. But I think it's low scoring. I think it's very tight. And that's why I go with Seattle plus 2.5.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, I think we could talk about Arizona in a similar category, not the same, Tyler, but in a similar category as we talked about the Washington Commanders a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Where they're a year early, but they're still a year behind. They should be 2 or 3 years behind, but they're right now feels like just that 1 year away. The difference, of course, is that, the big question mark becomes that uncomfortable conversation with Kyler Murray. There's no uncomfortable conversations about Jaden Daniels, and that's what puts the Commanders in their own little class there. But yeah, I'm with you on this game. I didn't expect at the beginning of this season to look at this game and go, oh, that's a battle for the top of the NFC West. And
Right.
so kudos to both of these teams for making it that conversation. I'll tell you what I like in this game is the over for James Conner and rushing yards, 61 and a half. Arizona is the number 6 rushing offense in the NFL. Seattle's the number 26 run defense in the NFL. It's basic, but it's an easy one to find. And with it being a low score game, this is going to be a game of trying to protect leads. And so that could work in James Conner's favor.
Absolutely. So those are some things we like. We're going to do a little rapid fire here in the final segment, because I'll be honest with you folks, a lot of these games, rather than betting straight up, I'm going to be teaser Tyler on this one. And we'll start with the Minnesota Vikings and not allowing Kirk Cousins to get that revenge that I'm sure he wants. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Ice Shaker. Listen, guys. Locked On NFL fans, I know you're like me, holiday shopping list, let's just say it's far from complete. Well, if that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for you, the passionate sports fans in your life. I would just get one for yourself if I'm honest, but get one for a bunch of people, because if you haven't heard of Ice Shaker, you need to. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, the NCAA, the MLB. It makes the ideal gift. It's created and used by the Gronkowski brothers. Ice Shaker has been sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game for workout bottles. And this is a gift that you've been looking for. Trust me. Go to iceshaker.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout, and you're going to save 25% off your order. It's stainless steel. It feels so good in your hand. It's heavy. You know that it's a good quality product. It's not going to absorb odors like plastic bottles do. They have a really cool patented twist in the agitator that helps break up like powders for protein powders, but it's also silent when you shake it. There's not that annoying metal ball inside the cup and everything like that. Like, it's customizable with different logos. You have to order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the final third of the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can open up the FanDuel Sportsbook app and you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I'll be honest, I have the FanDuel app open basically the entire game when I'm watching some of these football games, some of these basketball games during this time of year. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Ross, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about that Thursday night football game between the Packers and the Lions. Talked about some of the games that we're keeping our eye on this weekend with the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Now I want to move to some other games that I like this week from a betting standpoint, give you guys some of our thoughts, and Ross has some good prop bets for you guys as well. And we are going to start with Kirk Cousins' revenge game against the Minnesota Vikings. And Ross, I got to be honest with you. I simply don't think that Kirk Cousins is going to get his revenge this week. I like the Vikings -5.5 in this game. Kirk Cousins has not been playing very good football recently, and I think that went into my guy Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons talking about what the keys to victory are going to be here for Atlanta.
You got to have some answers for Brian Flores, and we'll see what interesting wrinkles Zach Robinson can come up with. I think pressuring Sam Darnold is a big part. You know, they had some success last week. They had 5 sacks. And previously they had like 10 sacks for the entire season. So maybe that's a trend that can continue, especially with the interior. You know, I liked some of the blitzes that Arizona was throwing at Minnesota. And I want to see, some of that aggressiveness. And then we talked about it earlier with the turnovers. right? Aaron Jones fumbleitis the last couple of weeks. We have some defenders on the Falcons defense, Nate Landman, Jesse Bates, that are really good at punching the ball out. And then hopefully that pressure and whatnot, you can get Sam Darnold to make some mistakes, force some throws into, Justin Jefferson or whatever, and maybe AJ Terrell or Jesse Bates, does his usual cheating on it and jumps those throws and they get some turnovers. And as you say, capitalize on that with touchdowns as opposed to field goals.
The problem is all those keys to victory don't include Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins is playing terrible football right now. He doesn't have the normal velocity. I mean, it's not like Kirk Cousins ever had a cannon or anything like that.
Right.
But he doesn't have the adequate velocity on his throws right now. You could see it on the game last week. He just wasn't pushing the ball down the field in the way that we're used to seeing him do so. I think that the Falcons really have to do everything perfect to cover for Kirk Cousins and where he's at right now. And I don't think that you're going to beat the Minnesota Vikings doing that. I think the Vikings get to Kirk Cousins. They get to him early and they get to him often. And I think the Vikings might win by 10 points in this one. So I love the -5.5.
I love that. Yeah, I think the thing with Kirk Cousins is what we've always known about him is that he's a when it rains, it pours kind of mistakes guy.
Yeah.
You get him to make one mistake and you have an aggressive Brian Flores defense on the other side to help try to make that happen. He's going to continuously make mistakes. What is it? 6 interceptions to no touchdowns over the course of the last 2 games, 4 interceptions last week. Now, he's very good against the blitz, and Brian Flores blitzes like crazy. But I think the thing that's going to make this tough for the Atlanta Falcons is how good the Vikings are against the run. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson under 63.5 rushing yards, because I think that the Vikings offense will be able to open up and play very good run defense for their defense by creating the scoring opportunities, taking advantage of the scoring opportunities, and forcing Kirk Cousins to go to the air and probably make some mistakes on the way.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I mean, the Atlanta Falcons have been okay in run defense this year. They're like 14th in the league, 117 yards, but they've been bottled up in certain games when you would think that they would be able to do better on the ground. So I'm with you there. I don't see the consistency from Atlanta's run game to make me feel comfortable with taking them there. Moving forward, I do like the Chicago Bears money line in this one. They travel to San Francisco, and the Bears money line right now on FanDuel is +176. At the end of the day, San Francisco's season is kind of over, and they know it. They're super banged up as well. And on the other side, the Bears have a 10-day rest, and they get that fired coach bump. The Bears want to go out and prove that, it was Matt Eberflus's fault, right? Like, we're a good enough team. He was screwing us. And teams always you saw the New Orleans Saints get a 2-game winning streak after they fired their coach, because you just naturally, and this is why I hate people in the NFL media who act like momentum isn't real. There is a psychological factor to professional sports, and the fired head coach bump is another proving factor that these aren't robots out on the field. They're humans. They feel momentum. They feel the psychological factors that go into playing sports. And I think the Chicago Bears beat the San Francisco 49ers straight up. So I'll take the money line on that one.
Yeah, and I'll also take the over on Caleb Williams passing yards. That's not something I would have been willing to do coming into this game before the season began, but that's how I'm feeling right now. 222.5 over on our friends over at FanDuel. Thank goodness to FanDuel for making this weekend an entertaining weekend of football somehow, some way. But I really do feel good about Caleb Williams this week, that interim coach bump, the rest, as you mentioned. I also just don't feel good about Kyle Shanahan right now. In years after, this is kind of crazy. In the 2 seasons combined that follow up Super Bowl appearances, his teams are 11-17. The Super Bowl hangover has been really real for Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. And yes, injuries do factor into both of those, but I think that the injuries factor into the Super Bowl hangover period as a whole. So it's been very interesting to watch that 49ers team this offseason.
100%. I mean, you play 19, 20 games, multiple seasons in a row, and it absolutely takes a toll on guys' bodies. And then I think that does factor in the workload Christian McCaffrey had last year and how much they gave him the ball, and now he just can't stay healthy. I mean, it all does line up. It's not like the injuries cause it. The injuries are a part of it. You know what I mean? It's a symptom of the issue. But with that being said, again, this is a tough slate, in my opinion, to find good, singular, standalone bets. So before we go, I did just want to throw a few things at you guys Seattle plus 2.5 that I mentioned earlier, Chargers plus 3.5 that we talked about earlier, teasing those teams up to plus 9.5 for the Chargers, plus 8.5 for Seattle. That is just pure money right there for me. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are both minus 6.5. Teasing them down to minus 0.5 is basically just making the games pick them. I love that as well. So, again, a tough slate. Stay strong, everybody. Fight through. But I think leaning on some teasers this week, probably the way to go. But with that being said, that is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Make sure that you check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed for free year-round NFL content here on the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For me, your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, and my co-host, the Mastermind Ross Jackson. As I tell you every episode, stay safe out there.